Remember in the early days of Kind of Funny where we constantly would do movie casting episodes of Game Over Greggy's show, and we'd always try to find a way to get Steve Harvey involved. We got to bring that back.
Who did we cast him for Metal Gear Solid?
Decoy Octopus.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
The DARPA chief.
The DARPA chief.
Yeah.
The DARPA
well,
chief. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. It's been a minute.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Kind of Funny Gamescast for Wednesday, February 19th. How is it this far in February? That is wild. 2025. Of course, I am your host, Tim Geddes. I'm joined today by a very special crew of gentlemen. We have Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Who is Steve Harvey in the Legend of Zelda movie?
Tingle.
I was going to say Beetle.
Okay, that's good too.
Ganondorf.
We have Barrett Courtney.
Midna.
That's some
I like it.
sex appeal. I don't know. And rounding out the group today, we have Andy Cortez.
Happy birthday to me, guys.
Happy
birthday,
belated
Andy.
birthday.
Thank you.
So you're like Mike now. Every day is your birthday.
Yeah.
Look, the shortest month, you know.
Okay.
You got to help me.
Well,
day.
there's
It's a day. It's not a birth month.
yeah.
Yeah, you know.
You gotta help
And I
me.
feel like there's other things to celebrate within the month, you know.
Yeah, like Black History.
Exactly.
All right. It's
Well-
been 18 days. Do not mention it once on this channel.
I mean, every time I always
Happy
look,
Black History
every
Month,
time I look at
everybody.
every time I look at the plight of black folks in America, I'm always like, I'm in the shortest month also. I get it. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah, exactly. I know what you guys are going
28
through.
days, you know.
28 is not enough. It's leap
28
year.
days.
Sometimes.
Still not.
Sometimes we throw you a
29.
bone.
Sometimes 29.
I always tell the story, but my elementary school principal was born on leap year. And so we always used to joke that she was like, hey, you're only like 10 years old or whatever the fuck.
Kevin-
That was funny.
Shouldn't it be 29 days a year with the knuckles?
What's the knuckles? What are we talking about?
You know, where you put your hands together, two fists. Nope, not like that. Everyone's doing it wrong. Andy, show them. You know how. I'm trying to eat the. Yeah,
The
there it
idea
is.
that Kevin just said, you know, when you put your fists together, we all did. Like, he said, not that way.
You guys, I don't have.
He's trying to eat a burrito
Yeah,
right now.
it is. Let me tell you.
You can't even get the thoughts out of his brain.
You guys,
He's too
it's
focused on
so-
this fucking burrito.
No, but like it's so poorly wrapped. I actually want to go across the street and complain.
Oh, wow.
I walk in. It was like 10:30 in the morning. I see a burrito on the kitchen table.
to be fair to Kevin, he's got a
It's the
weird
schedule of his
schedule
day,
thing. Yeah.
Well, I just love it. I just love because I looked at it and I was like, okay, whose is this? I'm like, why am I asking that
Oh,
question?
he's coming
You know
out to
what I mean?
show how poorly wrapped
Yeah.
this burrito is.
Let the people know.
What the fuck happened here?
Okay, yeah, that is
What's
bad.
happening here? I just unwrapped it. I'm sitting there confused, and now you guys are talking about your hand.
That looks more like a chili dog than it
This is
looks
a
like
fucking
that's weird.
zombie-infested burrito.
Yeah.
it was the first
Inside's falling
burrito
out.
of the day. While they were making it, they were like, "Why the fuck are we making a burrito this early?"
That burrito has got the dream scourge fucking about.
I'm still trying to figure out this knuckle situation.
So I
Well,
think
yeah, please explain.
it's up here.
Well, there was an episode of Games Daily where we were Kevin was pitching to us how the year should be divided, so there's no short month or whatever. And then Kevin just said, you know, the whole like knuckles thing. And me and Blessing having no idea what he was talking about. We're like, what are you talking about? And then he brought up the little diagram on Google Images that showed something how the days line up. I forget how.
So where there's a knuckle, it's 31 days, and where there's no knuckles, it's like less or some shit. 30. I
30.
don't remember it. Yeah.
30, 31, 30, or something like that. Tim.
And June and July both have like 31 days or some shit. I don't know.
And Sunday's always on the first of the month or something like that, right, Kevin?
Now you're mixing in the like, hey, we should move to 13 month week.
Oh, right, that's it.
13 months a year.
A year, yeah.
It works,
And it-
guys.
I like that we lost Bless for 5 seconds there.
It works, guys. He's right. That genius is
Now
right.
remember, this is the second time Bless heard this hand
I
thing.
didn't believe you the first time. I didn't even try it. This time I did the studying. And the
Oh,
studying
man.
has proved it works.
Everyone,
crazy.
This is the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Each and every weekday, we run you through all the video game stuff that you need to know about, including reviews, previews, big topics, and sometimes just fun discussions about things that we want to see from some of our favorite franchises, like The Legend of Zelda. If you like that, get the Kind of Funny membership on YouTube, Patreon, Spotify, or Apple Podcast. You get the show ad-free. You can watch live as we record it, and you get a daily exclusive show.
It's not just the smoke; it's
the
hearing
laughter.
Kevin laugh from the other room.
All of that was on purpose. I was like, I'm gonna wait half a second and smoke
Jordan,
and have the camera cut so you only see one. I guess.
Jordan Didon in
He's on
chat
it right now.
says nobody told Les about the nines timetables tricks. I do. Do you guys know about when you times things by 9? How to
your
get
fingers?
with your fingers? Yeah.
Yes.
You guys know this.
No. What?
So tell me, ask me like 9 times any other single
Well,
digit.
first of all,
9 times
guys,
6. So you
he
put your hands
should
up,
be able to just do it on his own, but it's,
you put down the 6th
failure
finger.
of the school system that he has to use
54,
his
that's
hands.
the answer.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So you can do that with any like single digit.
So 9 times 7, you get
Yeah.
63. Whoa.
I'm surprised
Pretty
they didn't
crazy,
teach this.
right?
Pretty
I mean,
crazy.
I can just do it in my head like a fucking adult.
Well, here's the thing, because I could probably do that too. But like last night, probably I don't know. 9's a big number. I've been doing this for so
But that's
long.
the thing, though, Bless, is like I could do it too without the fingers, but only because I did it with the fingers for so long. There's 9 has an agenda. 9 is backed by the big school system here because, like, why'd we learn so much about 9 more than the other?
I mean, I
numbers?
feel like we
9
learned
and
equally
12.
about all of them.
What's 11 times 11?
121.
Yeah, I did. That was. That's not a hard one.
I was good at
Tim.
math.
That was not a hard one. But last night, and I don't.
I took statistics for fun in college. Like,
I don't want to be.
Fuck
I don't
you,
want
he
to be.
responds.
I don't want to be mean to a child, but I got to. I was on TikTok, and there was a clip from. It must have been America's Got Talent or X Factor or one of them ones, right? Like one of those talent shows. And there was a parent with a child who was probably like 3 years old, and the whole like talent was the parent brought out a whiteboard with a marker and like asked the judges. He was like, "All right, give me 2 numbers," and the judges would be like 8, and another judge would be like 23, and the parent would write down 8 times 23, and the kid would do math, and that was his whole talent. And I watched that clip, and I was like, "This is some bullshit. Like this ain't like America's Got Talent level of like."
What does Simon Cowell say?
They were so impressed, and I was like. I learned this maybe a couple of years after he did, but like,
blessed, the number kept getting bigger because it's like 2-digit.
I cut off the clip out.
Multiplication, easy, but you get to like 8.
Blessing through his phone.
I was so mad. I was like, why aren't I on
was
America's
so-
Got Talent? I can do the same thing.
Did you guys? There was a record broken at the fastest calculation of like 4-digit addition, where it's 4-digit numbers get shown, and the kid adds them up in like 24 seconds or something. Crazy.
Well, just add in.
Yeah, but it's like 4,856 plus 385.
I would say like multiplication would be crazy, but like,
Yeah, man.
I don't
You
know,
guys,
it's
you
just-
guys aren't. It's 100 different 4-digit numbers.
Kevin's always remembering new numbers.
Because
We
like
know that.
it's
Oh,
also,
okay, I
it's
got
also
you, I
not
got
like
you.
he's doing this in his head. He's like writing out the math.
I
too.
thought it was just 2 different numbers that were 4-digit. I was like, that's just a fucking basic addition thing there. But if it's 10 different numbers, then I'll give it to that child.
Speaking of numbers, we
100.
are an 11-person business here at Kind of Funny, and we'd love your support with membership. Like I'm saying, you get the shows ad-free. You can watch live as we record, and then you get a daily exclusive Greg Way. To be a part of this show, please super chat in on YouTube if you have ideas of what you want to see or things you don't want to see from the Legend of Zelda franchise on the Switch 2. Please super chat those in. A little housekeeping for you. Next Monday is a very, very exciting day. I will finally be releasing me and Gia's wedding video. That will be happening after a very special Kind of Funny Gamescast. You can check it out as a YouTube premiere, probably around 12:30. I don't know how long exactly the Gamescast might go, so we'll have to wait and see. But between noon and 12:30, somewhere around there, YouTube premiere, youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. It's going to be a super fun time. It includes Greg and Nick's speeches, among Cisco's performance, and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff, including me and Gia getting married, which is kind of fun. A little bit other stuff here for you. We already had Games Daily, so you should go check that out. It is Snowbike Mike talking to
Nathan Grayson, who just came out with a book called Stream Big, I believe. He went around and interviewed a bunch of different Twitch streamers and kind of talking about where Twitch has been in terms of community, in terms of creation and all that stuff. It's very fascinating. So you should check that out. I forget what the website is, but check out aftermath.site. I think you can find an excerpt there to check that out.
Hell yes.
Tim, we got a really interesting super chat regarding your questions about 9, why we learned so much about 9.
You wanna read it?
Alex J. Sandoval writes in and says, fun fact, we learned a disproportionate amount about 9 to make up for it getting 8 by 7.
Shit!
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Tim was onto something. That's
I was onto
crazy.
something, man. Anyways, we have a lot more cool stuff happening because every single day we're live all day doing a bunch of fun stuff. We already did Games Daily. We're doing Gamescast right now. After this, we are going to be doing a stream of Scaravan 66. That's going to be a whole bunch of fun. Mike and Greg hanging out playing some super fun games for Steam Next Fest, which is fun. And then later this afternoon, it won't be live, but 2 screencasts will be coming out. Cobra Kai review and full spoiler cast of the entire series at this point. Can't wait to talk about that. And also Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1. The finale happened last night at midnight. Nick and I have watched it.
Midnight? On
Yeah.
Disney Plus?
I don't know why they're going back to it for some shows.
That sucks.
They're trying everything.
All
man.
right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no,
That
but-
was just like, that just took me aback.
It sucks, but the show's amazing though. Can't wait to talk all about that. Finale was mind-blowing, so can't wait to talk about that in full spoiler form. If you're a Kind of Funny member, of course you get today's Greg Way. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Delaney Twining, Carl Jacobs, Omega Buster, and Karen Lindner. Today we're brought to you by Built Rewards, Factor, and Stash, but we'll tell you all about that later. We got to get into it. The topic of the show. Topic of the show is The Legend of Zelda on the Switch 2. What are our hopes, Bless?
One of our
What are
dreams.
our dreams, Barrett? Andy.
What are our aspirations, Andy?
Yeah,
Exactly.
there you go.
But to look at the future, I wanted to look at the past for just a second.
And link it.
Looking at the releases of Legend of Zelda in the last couple of years, we've gotten a lot. Nintendo seems to really value this franchise. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I wonder why.
And they seem to be just putting more and more into it as we kind of got I don't know if I want to call it second resurgence, but definitely the biggest boom that the franchise ever had with Breath of the Wild, kind of like pushing things forward, and I think even retroactively making the franchise even more relevant to modern gamers in a way that it hadn't been for a while. Even though it was still huge, it's now on a different level when we're talking about sales numbers, right? But since 2013, when Wind Waker HD came out alongside A Link Between Worlds, it's pretty much on a every 2-year cycle that we're getting a Zelda, but it clearly looks like their goal is getting a Zelda game out every single year. And that includes things like Majora's Mask 3D, Triforce Heroes, Twilight Princess HD, Breath of the Wild in 2017, Link's Awakening 2019, Skyward Sword HD 2021, Tears of the Kingdom in 2023, and Echoes of Wisdom in 2024. So there's a balance there of brand new installments in the what we'd call mainline franchise with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. There's remasters for things like Skyward Sword HD, Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD. There's remakes like Link's Awakening. And then there's the 2D games that are, you can call them spin-offs or just kind of like a fork in the road type thing with Echoes of Wisdom. And Triforce Heroes I would put more in the spin-off category.
Yeah.
Similar to like the Four Swords Adventures games of yore. With all that being said,
Not 2D, right? Like just more of the old school classic top down.
with the
or-
multiplayer top down,
Yeah.
you're working together like competitive co-op, I guess you can
Right.
call it, because you're like getting
2D
scored.
like design from the days of old, right?
Yeah.
Like a Link Between Worlds being kind of like a mainline game, but like I don't know, it's a weird one.
Well, even that. So I would put that more in the category of Echoes of Wisdom,
Yeah,
which like it is. Yeah, that's the fork in the road. Like I count it as mainline, but it's. I mean, yeah, 2D.
it's like you know, we're waiting for the sequel for Mario Odyssey, but here's Mario Wonder. You know, like I would say that like they're part of the main like
I would say
releases.
Yeah,
but-
I think it's very akin to Mario as far as they all are mainline releases, but it's almost 2 franchises at this point when you talk about, or 2 series, maybe not 2 franchises, but when you talk about 2D versus 3D, right? Echoes of Wisdom, the Link's Awakening are mainline, right? But also Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are mainline in different ways.
Mhm.
But like, and then you're talking about a third, like there's also like the third iterations of those spin-offs that you're talking about with like the multiplayer stuff,
Yeah,
Spirit Tracks.
Triforce Heroes. Well, that's the thing too. Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, I think, kind of fall in an interesting position where I probably would put them in the same category as Echoes of Wisdom, where it's like gimmick. It is traditional Zelda, but it's so gimmick focused that it kind of like deserves its own category, even though there's not necessarily similarities between.
top down classic,
different games?
top down gimmick.
Yeah,
I just know the comments are gonna roast you saying that like it's not a 2D game. How is it not a 2D game? It's just it's a top down, top down
Yeah.
fixed
Sorry,
camera or whatever.
You're
yeah.
right. 2D's not the
One
way
I
to say it.
one I do want to shout out that's not included on the Wikipedia page, right? Is what are the Dynasty Warriors type Zelda games called?
Hyrule Warriors.
The Hyrule Warriors.
There's
games.
two of them, Age of
Yeah.
Calamity and
OG
Hyrule
one.
Warriors, and both are very well received.
Yeah, and I think that goes in the conversation of you talking about how the cadence of what they're trying to do with Zelda games, right? Where
Cadence
even
of Hyrule.
the cadence of Hyrule.
Wow.
Yeah, like they're trying to hit these maybe once a year or so, maybe once every couple years, but you're not going more than 2 years without a Zelda game.
Yeah, and Purple Link in the chat saying every Zelda's a mainline game except for something like Warriors game. We're not. I know people get sensitive about Zelda when it comes to like what's canon, what's not, what's the timeline, what's mainline. It's like, we're not saying it that way. We're just kind of defining
Ganon's brother.
what we're expecting to see on Switch 2.
And kind of like how Nintendo treats it, you know?
Yeah. So with that being said, what do we expect from Zelda on Switch 2? With all those different categories, are there any that we think we're not going to see?
When you say not going to see, are you talking about in a certain time frame, or are you talking about just on Switch 2 period?
Switch 2 period.
Because I think we see it all again on Switch 2
too.
period.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'm not confident in is that Triforce Heroes, Four Swords Adventures type multiplayer situation. I don't think that that's a slam dunk guarantee, but I also wouldn't be
when
surprised.
when did Triforce Heroes come out?
2015, I want to say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2015.
I think especially with the reception to that game in particular, I remember being kind of wishy-washy on if people actually fucked with it. And we haven't seen or heard anything in a decade about that. Like, I think that has kind of been abandoned.
Yeah.
I'm in a weirder spot with that because I think that this is comparing apples to oranges, but a story developer like From Software out of nowhere saying, let's make a multiplayer, roguelite, whatever. I could totally see Nintendo going, oh, what if we just did something like that in our off time, while we're building the next big thing, or we just release a big thing and the next big thing won't be for another 2.5 or 3 years. What if we just do something Triforce Heroes-esque in the meantime? Roguelike, get abilities, multiplayer, whatever. It's, you know, it's a way to just join up with friends and play a Zelda game.
I do think Triforce Heroes is a bit of an anomaly when you're talking about Zelda games because it very much feels to me like the end of 3DS life. Like this is pre-Switch. To say it's desperate is kind of a reach, but it kind of had that feeling where it didn't feel like it mattered, even in a way that like Four Swords Adventures, when it first came out, was a mode in the re-release of Link to the Past on Game Boy Advance.
Right.
And that was because they were really pushing the Link cable, the 4-player multiplayer on Game Boy Advance, and then they made the GameCube game. But again, that focused on the gimmick of playing GameCube with your Game Boy Advance, right? So I feel like that was a different era of Nintendo. But I'm with Andy that like I wouldn't be surprised if we did get a multiplayer Zelda on Switch 2, but I don't think it would be a follow-up to either of those
I agree.
No, same. Yeah, I think it'd just be a random drop.
That's the thing is I think if we're putting these all into different buckets, right? If we're putting Triforce Heroes into the bucket of experimental, weird spin-off Zelda game, like I don't think we'll get another Triforce Heroes, but we will get another weird, like experimental Zelda game. And I honestly would take it as far as to even say, I think you look at Elden Ring, Night Rain, a lot of those concepts would work pretty well for a Zelda co-op game if you wanted to do it.
I think with the with the horsepower they're driving with now,
Epona.
to have something in the Breath of the Wild sort of style world where it's all crazy physics-based stuff, but now you're going to have to implement more, you know, if we're just brainstorming, if we're adding 2 or 3 more players to a play session, that's a lot more horsepower. And I think that that's something that could benefit if you are talking about the way explosions and the physics systems work and fire and ice melting and wind turning, you know, all that sort of stuff. I think could be a great playground for for multiplayer friends to join up and kind of just play in that world.
You could do some crazy shit in Zelda, especially if you go the Elden Ring Night Rain route of, hey, smaller map, we are dropping you into very specific areas, still like open world exploration. If we're gonna they're not gonna do this, but if they're gonna take the 1-for-1 circle closing,
The blight
yeah, exactly.
Link comes in a glider. He's
Like,
done it before.
There are so many analogies we can make from the design of modern Zelda, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, to the design of an Elden Ring, where it is, hey, you're running around, you're collecting resources, you're crafting the thing, you are collecting weapons, and now at the end of day 1, it is you and 2 other. You and 2 other Links fighting the
Tim,
bosses.
it's not the thing closing in. It's the moon coming down.
Oh my God.
Barrett hates this so much.
I hate this entire last 5 minutes of conversation. Nothing has depressed me more.
You loved Night Rain.
Yeah, but it just feels like that's, I don't know.
That's what I thought about Elden Ring. That's what I thought about Elden Ring.
Yeah, but Zelda is different to me, and I don't hold Souls games nearly as to the height as you do. And I think for me personally, it's like, okay, who's working on that then? Because I think to pull that off in like an actual successful way, you need the main Zelda team to do that. I don't want the main Zelda team to do that. And then if you're having a different team work on it, I don't want the Splatoon team working on that. I don't want the fucking Triforce Heroes team working on that shit. Like, because it's not gonna be good.
I'd be down for that. I feel like that.
I would play that. Before
You have an
Splatoon.
engine, you have a framework, you have something to do with already, right? You know, and that's why I mentioned that this would. I could see them just throwing a random multiplayer experience together in between the big releases that you were doing.
Yeah, and I also put this out here, right? And I think this will drive into the larger conversation we want to have, is the fact that Nintendo is extremely creative as a company, right? The people that work at Nintendo are extremely creative. The team that works on Zelda is extremely creative and inventive. And I even think back to the Zelda Breath of the Wild DLC, where you had, Barrett, the Trials of the Sword.
Trials of the Sword, which is like a bunch of challenge rooms, like one after another.
And like, I love the Trials of the Sword. And I think I want to see that expanded out to the furthest extent of, hey, you have this game filled with systems and filled with like meticulously thought out system interactions and really cool things that you can do. The reason why I even would push for an idea like this, it doesn't have to be Elden Ring, Night Rain, right? But an idea that is you and maybe friends like going in and just experiencing the systems for what they are in a more pared down thing, is because I think the next big step for Zelda, Zelda mainline might end up being something radically different, right? Like I don't expect us to be in the same Hyrule that we've been in for the last 2 games, which means I also expect us to maybe have different systems that aren't the same ones, right? Like maybe we aren't getting like the elements as far as how fire interacts with grass, how that interacts with ice. Maybe we're getting systems in a whole new way. And if we are, I still want the soul of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to live on in some kind of thing, because I think there's so much value there that I don't want to get left behind.
What are we looking at, Kevin?
It's the evolution of Epona.
Isn't it crazy that they shut down?
I don't even remember Epona being.
Four Swords Adventures.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy?
2004 GameCube.
Yeah, wow.
They
Somebody said Epona, so
they DMCA'd YouTube videos from Point Crow, or was it a friend of the YouTuber, but who was just playing the co-op mod for Breath of the Wild, and they took down those YouTube videos. It wasn't an instruction on how to install. It was like, I'm playing this ROM, but I'm just with my friends, you know. And they took down just those having fun videos, and that's a sign of things to come.
No, it's not. It's Nintendo should have birthday parties if
It's
they
happening.
fucking can. Does it mean that they're making a birthday party game?
It's happening. Open your mind.
I mean, they would though.
Yeah, so we're talking here about a potential multiplayer that I do think could happen potentially, but I don't think that that's a guarantee. What is a guarantee is more mainline Zelda games. And looking at the last 4 releases, or even 5, going to Breath of the Wild, we had Breath of the Wild mainline, Link's Awakening remake, Skyward Sword remaster, Tears of the Kingdom mainline, and then Echoes of Wisdom kind of mainline top down, right? Slightly experimental. So what is next?
It has like I don't. It doesn't have to be, because Nintendo is weird and they'll do whatever. Throw up the WNDs in the chat. We gotta get Wind Waker and Twilight Princess at some fucking point. Like those games have been in the rumor circles for. Like, I was at IGN when that was starting, right? And I think it's crazy that they have not popped up on Switch 1, like, whatsoever. So it makes me think, okay, maybe they are holding something like that for a Switch 2, whether it is, like, Nintendo Online, where they add, like, GameCube, which I don't know if I would love for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, is because then we have to deal with a little bit of like the OG control systems that I think like the HD versions like definitely fix. I would love to do something more like the Mario 30th anniversary, 35th anniversary collection, something like that, for the HD versions. But that I feel like that's got to be the next step, because we just got Echoes of Wisdom. The main Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild team is going to have to cook for a little bit. So I feel like it's an easy win for the first year or 2 of the Switch.
Yeah, my read on those remasters is just more of a timing thing than anything. If I'm to believe Jeff Grubb, which I do most of the time, right? Like Jeff Grubb stands on the fact that like, dude, those are ready to go. Like they've been sitting on it. Like, you know, they can release it whenever. And
It's our Ubisoft Gamescast topic.
yeah, where they I think that's actually the perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Because for audience listeners, right? We had the Ubisoft topic, the Gamescast topic of where did Ubisoft go wrong? And every meeting, there's always like either an embargo,
Something that pops
or
up.
something that pops up, or a better topic. And so we're like, we
have
take
to punch the topic.
we take the where did Ubisoft go wrong Gamescast topic, and then we move it a week forward. And that's been happening to the point where, like, I think a few weeks ago I was like, can we just delete it?
Because we've already had the conversation on Games Daily a million times.
yeah, so
now,
we're like,
but
should we just delete it? And we're all like, we like
let's
the
just
bit.
keep it here.
We like
Yeah.
the bit.
A
Like
bit
this
just
is
for us.
Yeah, a bit just for us.
It's like
just
the
for our weekly
placeholder
meeting.
headline for us now.
I mentioned that they're going to get it right, and we have to like, we really got to do the topic before they get it right.
And I think maybe that's the similar thing with these, where maybe they've been sitting on it for years, but you look at the you look at the calendar, and it is all right. We don't want to release them maybe on top of each other because we want to give them space them out at a time. All right, we got Link's Awakening, so we'll hold it for next year. We got Skyward Sword HD. Okay, cool. Then we'll have these for next year. Tears of the Kingdom is probably going to come out in 2022. Damn. Okay, it got delayed into 2023.
Well, beyond that too, just to add, it's like what you're talking about is them looking at it, not just Zelda games, them looking at their content library coming
Yes.
out, and like Switch has been delivering back to back to back Nintendo published games like pretty much the entire generation.
Yeah,
Right.
and so I think it's been tough maybe to find the space where it makes sense to drop the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess remasters, because they want to give, like, I think Nintendo right now at this stage is pretty good about loading their shots and like waiting for the right time to fire. And I think it's just been an awkward in a good way for Nintendo of not having the right time to fire yet, because you have either content that's already taken up the slate, or you have Zelda games that can already stand, like, put down that Zelda flag for the year, right? Last year was Echoes of Wisdom. Years before that was Tears of the Kingdom, right? And I think I'm with Barrett as far as I think the next thing we see from Zelda probably is those remasters.
Yeah.
And if it's not, I imagine that it's some other project from Zelda that just comes out of nowhere.
It's the Silk Song sort of thing. It has to happen sometime.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't, but it's just because at least Silksong got confirmed at one point. Like, that is a real, tangible game. The HD ports of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess have never been like Nintendo has talked about. We're bringing them to Switch
That's
one
true.
day.
It's not officially confirmed, but like I firmly believe there's no way
They ported
don't.
every other fucking Wii U game to
That's
Switch.
the thing. Is like these games were made for Wii U, like the Wind Waker. There was so much love and care put into that, and they know. I mean, the numbers are all here. Like we see how Wii U game sells, and then we see how the same game, even if it's a remaster of an older game, sells on the Switch. And because of all that, like I feel like these are not going to be Switch 2 games. Like I think they're going to be Switch 1 games that are playable on Switch 2. And that's totally fine. My bigger question is, because I agree, I think those are next up, but I don't know necessarily that I think that they are a bundle pack. I don't think that they're even necessarily released at the same time. It's weird. Like all the stuff Andy was talking about with just like how they hold on to the games and stuff. Like thinking about Metroid Prime, like we heard about that for so freaking long, and then it just happened. Metroid Prime 1 remastered, and it was just like they had that. They were just sitting on it.
Metroid Dread.
And Metroid freaking Dread, like unbelievable shit, man. But yeah, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if this year we end up seeing at least one of the Zelda games come.
need it.
come
Do you
to
think
Switch.
there's a oh, it's been too long, like we can't release a Switch 1 game at this point type thing? Because like say we get to the Switch 2 launch and they're like, all right, Wind Waker, we're releasing it, it's a Switch 1 game, but you can play it on Switch 2, boom, it works. How long can you go before being like, shit, we got Twilight Princess, we got to drop this shit?
They're putting a
We're not gonna release a Switch 1 game in 2036. You know?
Onimusha 2, which I understand like very different scale here, but Onimusha 2 is coming out on PlayStation 4. Why? Because that makes sense. They don't need the PlayStation 5. And I think this is another example. Like these games came out on Wii U, and correct me if I'm wrong here, ran flawlessly. Like those were running 1080p 60, right? When they were actually Wii U was always docked.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But
It's been so long.
it's just like if that's the case, it's like I think that they never stop with these things. Like why would they? When there is like when the Switch is going to probably end up being the highest selling console of all time. Right?
I mean,
make that money.
fair enough. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Especially when like we're talking about two games that these versions are stuck on a console that only sold 13 million units lifetime.
Do we think Zelda, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess are both out by the end of 2025?
No.
Now that Tim's brought it up, no.
I don't think both. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think.
I really hope it's Wind Waker.
I can imagine. Man. I imagine we'll get Wind Waker first. I think Wind Waker will be this year, and then I wouldn't be surprised if Twilight Princess is next year.
Do you think that happens if there's another Zelda game coming next year?
Maybe not.
Because that's my thing. Is I think I would love for it to be Switch 2 launch. You have a Wind Waker or a Twilight Princess, either one, and then you tease it for later in the year and this fall we're coming out with this remaster. I feel like that's the easy win, because as much as we are hyped here sitting at this table for a Wind Waker and Twilight Princess thing, I don't know if that's a thing that you want to like stretch and make something like. I feel like that's something you can get out the door easily.
But I do think that it's the type of thing that Zelda is one of the rare franchises that is generational, where similar to a Pokemon, there's always going to be kids that are like, that was my Zelda. And as they get older, their nostalgia for that is going to fuel sales and I think create their own marketing beats in a way that not every franchise has the luxury of. So I think that being able to separate Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, especially because, jumping ahead a little bit, I firmly believe we're getting an Ocarina of Time remake.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that at one point. But
we'll talk about that after a word from our sponsors.
You ain't ready for it.
This episode is brought to you by Built. Y'all already know I'm a big points and rewards guy, but here's a PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you will earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/kindafunny. That's joinbilt.com/kindafunny. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/kindafunny to start earning points on your rent payments today. That's BILT. This episode's brought to you by Factor. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Greg Miller's been loving how simple it is to enjoy his Factor meals as he's rushing between shows each day here at Kinda Funny. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Multiple people here at Kinda Funny have been loving their experience with Factor, and you can too. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code FACTORPODCAST to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. This podcast is brought to you by Stash. Saving and investing can feel impossible, but with Stash, it's not just a reality, it's easy. Stash isn't just an investing app. It's a registered investment advisor that combines automated investing with dependable financial strategies to help you reach your goals faster. They'll provide you with personalized advice on what to invest in based on your goals, or if you want to just sit back and watch your money go to work, you can opt into their award-winning expert-managed portfolio that picks stocks for you. Stash has helped millions of Americans reach their financial goals and starts at just $3 per month. Don't let your savings sit around. Make it work harder for you. Go to get.stash.com/kindafunny to see how you can receive $25 towards your first stock purchase and to view important disclosures. That's get.stash.com/kindafunny. Paid non-client endorsements, not representative of all clients and not a guarantee. Investment advisory services offered by Stash Investments LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk. Offer is subject to T&Cs. And we're back. I don't want to get fully into the Ocarina of Time remake talk yet, but I bring it up just because I I feel in my soul, feel in my balls, boys, that they don't want Twilight Princess near Ocarina of Time. Like, there's just something about the visual styles of those games, and like Twilight Princess really kind of being a
edgier
overcorrection to like the initial response to Wind Waker.
Yeah.
So I could see them putting out Wind Waker, and it wouldn't surprise me if Twilight Princess is kind of just stuck in a limbo for a while.
I was gonna say, do they just take that file and just drag it to the recycle bin at some point?
No.
Damn.
I think it comes.
No.
I think that I think that there's no world in which Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD don't eventually get put on the Switch family of consoles to some extent. But I do think that there might be some weird shit where it's like we hear about Wind Waker and we don't hear about Twilight Princess, and we're all like, when are you going to talk about it? But I can see Ocarina potentially getting in the way of that some way, somehow. But Barry, you want to talk a little bit about Tears and Breath?
Yeah, so before we get any of this stuff, this exciting future, I think the first thing I really want for Zelda on Switch 2 is for those games to run at like a solid 60 the entire time.
With 4K ray tracing?
No, none of that stuff. But just like I really hope, and
HDR?
maybe like I don't know what the specs are for this thing yet, and maybe Andy, you can speak to some of it. Of like, are we confident that this new console is going to be able to run these kind of games at least like a bit more stably?
There is no world in where this won't run at a 60.
Okay,
Like.
Okay.
Even
if I'm in the what is it, the Lost
Depths?
Lost Woods.
Yeah,
No, I'm not saying you won't get I think frame drops happen all the time with certain pieces of hardware.
Do you think I'll be 45 frames per second in Lost Woods instead of 15?
I think you might have some dips into 48 and 52 and then go back up to 60 kind of immediately. I don't think there's a world in which those games do not run well enough. And again, with this whole with all of the sort of up-resing and AI up-resing that's going to happen with the NVIDIA chipset, you're going to be running it at 720 probably at its core, and then using the AI to up-res that to 1440p or something even higher than that. But yeah, I don't think there's a world in which this doesn't get because they have so much time to optimize on this piece of hardware. Looking at how quickly emulators and stuff were able to kind of get these things running at a high frame rate, and that's just fucking Joe Schmo in their basement working on ROMs at part-time or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's no world in which these games do not get some sort of upgrade and make it run really well and look good.
I think that you being so sure about the 60 is the one place that I don't necessarily agree. Like, I want to believe, and I agree with you that like no matter what, these things are going to run better, like substantially and noticeably. But I mean, Nintendo, man, like the day that like we're just getting constant 60 from them for Switch games, we'll see. But they did. There was an era where they cared about that.
I don't think that they put out this hardware if they don't care about that. I don't.
I think 60 still is higher than their level of like needing to care. Like they put out 30 FPS games, like even when they're premium stuff, when they can run better than that, when they do have the power to make them run better than that.
I just, in my mind, comparing a PS4 Pro like chipset, and I say that not saying that they're just taking the goddamn piece of hardware from the PS4 Pro. This is something of similar power, but much more modern still. Comparing that to a Android tablet that was already 2 years out of date when it came out. Like it came out in 2017, and this chipset was probably in development since like 2014 or something like that. That is so old. And there's moments here and there where Link's Awakening will go to 60 and then it'll drop to 32 for a lot of the time, the Link's Awakening remake.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that there's no way this game does not get
you saying that out loud like really puts it into perspective of like I always forget that like the hardware for the Switch One was like even when it came out was on dated like Android like tech and shit.
It's wild.
And just like comparing that to a more modern power usage of like a PS4 Pro chipset just makes me very, very excited.
And again, just to reiterate,
hell yeah.
I don't think that the only reason I'm confident about that is that they don't put out this hardware if they don't care about seeing their babies looking and running better.
Better, yes. I'm with you there. But
What is this
guarantees I don't want to put
comparison,
down until we see some stuff. Because the bigger question is, what's this even look like? Like, is this a new SKU, or is this going to be a patch for the old games?
Yeah,
is it paid? Is it not? Like,
that's the other thing that I worry about is like, if you already own it, here's a $10 upgrade path, or is like if you just put it in and just because it's on better hardware, does it naturally just kind of run better or whatever? I don't know.
Because that's the thing. If it's not that, then I do think that the no shit release this year is at minimum Breath of the Wild. Again,
Damn, that depresses me. That makes me sad.
I also don't think we get both of them. You know what I mean? Like,
I love when you do that too.
because like,
you sprinkle that salt.
Because if
You're actually right. Yeah.
to run better on Switch 2, then we're not getting fucking Wind Waker for years, man.
yeah, I mean, that's
That's a conversation. I don't know if we're ready to switch gears, talk
Go
about
for
like
it.
the future, because like I think there is the question of, is it Ocarina? Is it something new? I have an article here that I pulled from 2023. I believe this is right after Tears of the Kingdom came out. This is from Kotaku. The title of the report is that Tears of the Kingdom director already has plans for the next Zelda. This was written by Ethan Gotch, and it reads, 6 years after The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, its direct sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, is finally in the hands of Switch owners. So obviously, there's no better time to start asking about the future of the series. We've already gotten our first official tease for, what should we call it? Tears of the Kingdom 2, Breath of the Wild 3, Zelda 16. The smallest inkling of Nintendo's next Zelda comes from
Inkling, Splatoon.
Comes from a flurry of new interviews published today with director Hidemaru Fujibayashi,
The GOAT.
and producer Eiji Aonuma. Quote, and it seems likely that Fujibayashi already has plans for the next Zelda game, though he hasn't even told Aonuma about it yet, tweeted Zachary Small, a contributor to the New York Times who recently spoke to both developers. And that's kind of where the article cuts, and they just speculate. But like, already it seems like there's a seed of an idea in the brain.
A Korok scene. Yeah.
There we go.
Of an idea.
I do think that it's important to note that these conversations are happening simultaneously with conversations about Zelda getting theme park attractions and a Zelda movie coming out.
Yep.
And when we see the success of the Mario movie and we see how Donkey Kong's design looks like so
OG.
far in Mario Kart, that is a bit more in line with that OG/movie look. Like, I
Rest
do
in peace,
think
the rare look.
that we should expect that there's going to be a lot of influence going forward of that. And we don't know much. We don't know anything really about the is it West Ball Zelda movie?
Right.
Like, is it going to be its own thing? Is it going to be based on Ocarina? Is it going to be based on Breath of the Wild? I feel like those are the three most likely outcomes.
I have a really bad feeling that in about 6 months we're going to hear that West Ball is dropping off of the
I
movie.
really hope not. I really hope
It's
not.
gonna
When
be
man.
such
he
a bummer.
directed the recent Apes movie,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Which like is
It
hopefully
rocked.
going to win a shit ton of awards for VFX for how good. Like,
Gotcha.
he's going to kill this.
It
Zelda
rocked.
movie. It's going to be awesome. But the thing is whatever is it a new plot or a new story or world that then the next mainline game is using.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
when the most recent Aonuma interview was that talked about, yeah, you all don't like all this freedom. I love this freedom. I love
Yeah.
having all these tools.
That was
I
like
love having all these
Very
abilities.
shortly after Tears of the Kingdom came
And
out.
yeah, so, him mentioning, I don't want to go back to the old style. That's cool that you all want to. Maybe there's a place for that still in our catalog, but I love having all these random elements and things to sort of play with in this big playground that we've created. So I continue to see that for the future of whatever Zelda's going to be.
100%.
But can we still kind of go more for those old sort of structured?
I think because I think a lot of big criticisms I remember when Tears of the Kingdom came out was because of the freedom in terms of where you could go, and this is similar to Breath of the Wild, of like you get kind of the same story beats over and over again. I do wonder if they think about that a lot of like, okay, here's this big open world, and maybe we can still design it to be free where you tackle dungeons in any sort of way that you want. But let's maybe try to structure it where we can write the game in a way that doesn't feel like you're just going over the same plot points over and over again. Because I know a lot of people want them to kind of go away from the kind of freedom stuff, but like honestly, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I think, are most like the original vision of The Legend of Zelda. And I think they want to kind of stay with that because they were able to strike gold with like, oh shit, this like really is the core premise of the series, which is just get lost and explore caves, and we've kind of recreated that accidentally in a way that people really enjoy. So I do want a bit more of like a item based stuff though. Like bring that back a little bit.
So
like,
here's what's really cool about what you're saying is earlier I was saying like that Breath of the Wild kind of represented this like the biggest boon we've seen in Zelda in a long time. What was it before that? Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
Right? So if the original Zelda, the original vision for that was realized with Breath of the Wild,
Yep.
can we now get that Ocarina of Time level up for the next thing, right? Where you compare Ocarina to the original Zelda games and you totally see the DNA and it totally makes sense. It is just top down translated to 3D, but there was a much larger emphasis on the story and there was a much larger emphasis on dungeon design being part of the world. And like, I don't need to explain Ocarina to you guys. You get it. That's what I want to see from the next game. It's as open and stuff in terms of like design, but not in terms of you can go anywhere, do anything, all that stuff. It's
you can solve a puzzle in like a million different ways.
Exactly. I want that from a gameplay perspective, but I want it to be a little bit more guided because I feel that Breath of the Wild, specifically Tears of the Kingdom, were at their best when they were trying to tell a story and when there were story beats, including Breath of the Wild, actually, like with the Divine Beast and stuff, getting all those cutscenes and story beats before you go into what were essentially dungeons, right? Like that was some of my favorite stuff that wasn't just the magic, holy crap, I can't believe this actually worked moments of Breath and Tears. So I kind of want to see the Ocarina of Time glow up of tightening the game design a bit more, but while keeping all of the physics and the kind of like the gameplay exploit. Keep the exploration in the gameplay as opposed to having it be the most open-ended thing ever, because I do think that is unanimously, besides weapons breaking, probably the biggest criticism people have of the modern games is that the story is either or
no, not
just
this last one. Not
bro,
Tears of
just
the
like
Kingdom.
it's not presented well. Like it's presented
That's
in
true.
a very awkward
Wait,
way where you need to find these like kind of
You get the
bonus things.
same. You get the same
shit.
retelling of the plot kind of stuff in each corner of the map in Tears of the Kingdom over and over and over again, and it is very much like what. There's nothing different here.
I think you can improve that stuff
Yes.
a bit, but I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too, as far as marrying, I think, how solid of a story and as solid of an adventure you're delivering in Ocarina of Time in terms of like delivering moments and everything feel intentional and designed. Combining that with how open a Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom
I would
is.
disagree, and specifically from the point of terms of openness, in terms of doing whatever main dungeon or whatever in whatever order you want, because I think that's the thing that affects telling story the most in these games. I would disagree with you there because of A Link Between Worlds, which does nail that, is that you can do, like, once you get past like the tutorial dungeons or whatever, you can do any of those dungeons in any order that you want, and it doesn't run into the problem that Tears of the Kingdom runs into. So I think they can have their cake and eat it too.
I hope so, but yeah, I still do think I still do find it tough. Right? Like I think there is.
We're talking about this stuff like it's very simple stuff.
That's my
but
thing
yeah.
is like I think when you're talking about Breath of the Wild and what that and Tears of the Kingdom do as far as openness, as far as exploration, as far as like legitimately you can go anywhere, right? You have like overall objectives, you can tackle any of them. You can tell your own story, right? To go on your own adventure. I do think that like them going all the way toward that side of the spectrum has allowed them to deliver Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which I think, even though we identify these things as flaws or whatever, still 10 out of 10 video games, some of the most critically acclaimed video games of all time. Like, I look at that and I'm like, don't change a thing. Continue to level up on this, right? I think, for me, the solution here is to have those two lanes. And I think this comes back to what we're talking about with the remasters and possibly remaking Ocarina of Time, which I'm somebody who... Yeah, like, I think after a while, I'm going to start to miss the traditional 3D Zelda. I'm going to start to miss the Ocarina, the Twilight Princess. I won't say Skyward Sword. But, like, I think
Because we just recently got it, right?
Yeah, I never played Skyward Sword. Well, that's a lie. I played, like, 10 hours of Skyward Sword, and I dropped off. But, like, I want that kind of thing to make a return, but I think it really is the balance of, hey, if you're going to bring back Ocarina, I think you go full Ocarina, right? Like, I think you make that game what it is and don't try to translate it into the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom style game. I think you keep it as that, and for whatever the next new mainline 3D Zelda is, if you want to continue to make the sandbox kind of thing, make it the sandbox thing.
Yep.
I definitely think if you try to mess with any of the Ocarina formula, I think it would not only piss off a lot of people, but I don't know if that's what I'd want even out of an Ocarina remake. Like I wouldn't mind seeing
Oh, we'll talk about like updates for
yeah, like I don't know if I would want the exact one-to-one, because obviously I would want the lock-on system to be better, and I would want, just modern sort of quality of life things brought into the game. But I think as soon as you implement weapon degradation and all of that stuff, it's like, oh, I don't want any of that,
And yeah, you got to keep the sandbox stuff, because like Tim was saying, like Zelda is generational, and a lot of kids think of Zelda as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and nothing beforehand. And those are the games that have sold like fucking hotcakes. So it's like you got to kind of keep with that stuff. But yeah, like if we're going to bring stuff back and go through the nostalgia play, like, yeah, we can't mess with like, all right, here's, weapons breaking in Ocarina of Time and all this stuff. But let's
talk Ocarina.
Let's talk about the Ocarina remake.
Let's start with you,
because this whole headline spurred from the conversation of like Ocarina of Time. What would we want from a remake? And I remember, I forget on what show, the idea of implementing more like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom design elements into Ocarina of Time, which I agree with Andy. I think you lose the soul of what Ocarina was if you start to do that. If you make the Hyrule field like way big and like all this stuff and super explorable. I think what you need to do,
I wouldn't mind that though. Like,
see, but again, I just, to me, you got to keep almost one for one, but update stuff that makes the experience feel modern. And
so Ocarina of Time 3D,
but further than that,
the Silent Hill remake of
the Final Fantasy VII,
like not a reimagining, but like I rewatched one of my favorite videos on the internet, Sequelitis, from Aaron Hansen on Ocarina of Time. I don't agree with everything he has to say about his criticisms of that game, but one thing I do definitely agree with, especially like going back to Ocarina of Time as an adult, is that there's so much goddamn waiting in fights. And like, I would love for the battle system to honestly be reworked into, and this is because I'm playing Dark Souls 1, because Bless is playing Dark Souls 1, into something similar, not full crazy hardness stuff, but something where you implement a bit more of like stamina.
Now we're cooking.
Enemy design is a bit more active, because a lot of enemy design in Ocarina of Time is just them putting their shield up, you waiting for them to take their shield down, you hit them, and then you repeat the process over and over again.
You got a lock on and a dodge already. Like, it's already halfway there, man.
It's there, and I think that would then create something that's a more engaging battle system in a game that is a lot about active like battling. I think would make the interactivity of that world much more engaging and interesting in a modern era. And then art style, you just make Twilight Princess prettier kind of vibe.
Ooh, see, I think it needs so much more color. Like, I feel like it.
I think you could have the variation. Like, you don't need to do like the Twilight Princess color palette, but something that's like
not that much bloom.
But see, I think that I want to be clear. I love Twilight Princess. Like, I adore that game. I do think though that art style was in a lot of ways the wrong direction. Like, specifically when you look at a lot of the characters' faces. Like, I never liked those. Yeah. But that was that grim dark, like, we're going so edgy here. Like, I feel like it was chasing what at the time they thought Ocarina could have looked like in the future. But now that we've seen that Nintendo art magic so many different times and so many decades later, you look at Ocarina and you're like, oh, this isn't a realistic game. Like, this has a style to it that I want to see them kind of honor. And I keep bringing up the 3DS remake. Man. They nailed it. Like, that is the art style. It looks like the concept art of Ocarina. So it's already there. So I do think that the easiest answer for them is do a Wind Waker HD of Ocarina of Time 3D. And just put it out.
3D HD.
I don't want. I want to keep that art style. I would love to just see that done in a modern time where we've seen the cell shading a whole bunch with
I don't want them to just like remake Ocarina of Time in that engine, because like again, you start to lose what Ocarina of Time was.
The 3DS look is, I think, incredible. I love the 3DS look of Ocarina of Time remake or whatever, and if we could just get that up-res with model sort of touch-ups here and there, right? There's still going to be some crazy jaggy mountains that are like made up of 4 polygons. Like, obviously I would want to see those touched up a bit with the same sort of spirit of the art style. But, at what
point do we get to the not great looking Unreal Engine 5 recreations.
I don't think that happens because they have their way of.
Because I think instead of just like up-resing and stuff, like I think they're probably, if Ocarina of Time remake is real, they're probably cooking up something that I think is not a one-to-one, but think about like Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom, right? Of how they looked at what the Game Boy kind of art style was, and they were like, how do we like, what's a fun way to modernize that? And I think they're probably looking at Ocarina of Time in the same way if they're working on a remake, right? Not just like, let's keep the same art style. How do we reimagine this art style for modern times to make it look cool as cool as shit, but not pigeonhole it to what it always was, which then comes across as like, okay, if it looks the same, it's probably going to play the same.
We talked about this on a Gamescast like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where it's like, we brought up I purposely was like, bring up these Unreal Engine 5 looking things because I hate the way these things look. And I know that Nintendo would not want that because I've seen the way modern Nintendo games look. And I've opened up that brand new Mario Party Jamboree. It's like, God, this art style, their colors, the way that they deal with like shading and shadows and lighting. I love the way that their games look. And if you could just put more fucking engine underneath the hood, that shit's going to look incredible.
Madognik96 in the chat says, I don't want to bring bad vibes. Too late, you've already did. But Nintendo did just release an HD version of Donkey Kong Country, Returns, based maybe on the 3DS version. Maybe the Ocarina of Time remake is a port of the 3DS version. God damn it.
I mean, that's not even that's not
I don't
bad.
mind that.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's the easiest thing. I don't think that's what's going to happen, though. I firmly believe, based on no evidence or anything, well, I guess there's some evidence, but like no real knowledge of anything, I think the Ocarina of Time remake is going to substantially change Ocarina of Time. I don't think everyone's going to be happy with it. I think that it's going to be the plot of the movie, and I think that they're going to really lean into trying to create some type of balance of importance of Ocarina of Time and Breath of the Wild links, as these are Legend of Zelda to us.
Ocarina of Time, the movie, the game.
I think like Ratchet and Clank. That's crazy.
Then Dark Souls combat.
I do think, because I think I'm half with Tim, but then half with the idea of if they don't do what Tim's talking about, then it will be a port. I think you either, as Nintendo, if I am looking at my options, I am either porting the 3DS version of Ocarina of Time HD and like, making it pretty, making it a worthwhile like port, but yeah, we're not going to touch it because guess what? Ocarina of Time, I think, is a scary game to touch. It's the way that we talk about Sonic Adventure, Tim, where you're like, they're not going to love it. I love it.
Only you two. So only you two talk about it that way.
It's the way we talk about Sonic Adventure, where Tim's like, yo, Sega's not going to touch Sonic Adventure 3 because it's too sacred. Yeah. And I think Ocarina of Time is one of those sacred games where the more you touch it, the more you upset people.
I can't believe you just spewed this blasphemy on this shit.
They would never remake Schindler's List in the same way that I tell Tim, like, they would never remake Biodome. Like, same thing.
But I think if they do, I think the purpose of it is exactly what Tim's talking about. Hey, we are trying to take Ocarina and reintroduce it to the new generations, right? It's not just for us. It is for the kids. It is for a growing amount of people. What the fuck are we watching right now?
Thanks for bringing this up, Kev. This is there's a YouTuber that like does a lot of like recreations and like styled things, and like this is them. They did Ocarina, and you can actually, it's in Unreal Engine 5. And there's a bit where he's like actually walking around Castletown, and it looks more like gameplay.
Yeah, it's very like Ghibli-esque, but that like also just inspired, just like seeing it in the 3D. It reminds me of
Ni no Kuni.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so
that would be good.
I think if they go the route of we are bringing back Ocarina and we are ground up remake, modernizing it, introducing it to the new generation, and like making this, not literally canon, but we're making this canon Zelda. Like, this is what Zelda is right now. I think I could see it because you guys are having the conversation of art style. What I think they do in that case is do the Link's Awakening to Echoes of Wisdom thing, where whatever art style they bring back Ocarina for a ground up revamp of it ends up being the same art style they use for like a brand new iteration of the Zelda series.
And like, would you say like that's what they use for their open world stuff, or do they keep that for something that's like,
I think that's
let's do old school style?
I think that's
I'm kind of with Barrett. I don't know that I'm with you, but I don't think for the like big open world, like the biggest mainline Zelda. But I do think that like there could be a world where we get a if there is an Ocarina of Time remake with a different art style, a sequel like Majora's Mask, but like an Echoes of Wisdom of that. It's all gimmick based. Like that's the thing. A gimmick based 3D dungeon based.
An Echoes of Wisdom, a Link Between Worlds
Could you imagine
vaguely
getting
kind of thing.
an Ocarina sequel that isn't Majora's Mask? Like, and I'm
I'd be
saying,
so
I'm
mad.
asking this. Well, I'm asking this honestly in a good way. Of again, like I look at Echoes of Wisdom as I guess not a literal sequel of Link's Awakening because it's a different story, right? But like,
But Link Between Worlds to Link to the Past, they've done it before.
yes, yeah. I'm talking pseudo sequel / I guess successor is what I'm meaning, right? Like if they put out a new Ocarina that maybe we're calling it just a remake that might be more faithful. Another spin-off in that world. Like, let's say they do
Dude, oh,
Ocarina,
shit.
they do Majora's, and they do a third one.
And you know what the third one is? Because now I'm just getting into my fucking Zelda lore, fucking Duffy shit. Is we get this timeline where Link no longer exists, so it's pre-Wind Waker because Link goes back in time as the kid, and that's what leads to Majora's Mask. But what happens to the timeline where like he no longer exists as an adult, and then we play as like the next iteration of Link in that pre-Wind Waker?
See, I was going to drive it to another thing that I wanted to bring to the conversation is like, are we going to get a big Zelda game where you're playing as Zelda? That was one of the things that I remember we speculated about a bit after Tears of the Kingdom before they even announced Echoes of Wisdom.
DEI.
And then, yeah, I mean, the new DEI Zelda. Her name's in the title. But yeah, like a post Echoes of Wisdom, hey, we're testing the waters with what we can do with Zelda as a character. Now, let's go all in and make a 3D Zelda where it is the sandbox thing. But you instead of Link's powers, Zelda, who is like the magical person, right, in this whole scenario, it is you using her magic
Magical.
powers.
I don't
Magic
know.
build.
I feel like if anything, that would be maybe that happens, but I still think that is more in the spin-off realm than like their next big main step. But I do think that like whether it's the next big main step or an Ocarina remake to some extent, like I do think the idea of Nintendo trying to create a new canon for Zelda is going to be their step. And I think they're doing it with Mario, getting rid of Charles Martinet as the voice. Like I think that they're just kind of in this stage right now where they're looking at their games as IP in a completely different way, and they want to define that IP. And we're talking about Zelda, which even if Breath of the Wild was the big jump in sales and stuff, you cannot deny that Hot Topic sold NES controllers on everything and Triforces on everything. Right? There's brand power to Zelda that I think that they are just finally able to tap into across every market, from gameplay all the way to just merchandising and having the synergy there. So I think you're onto something with that.
A weird left turn, but just to go back to like the follow-up to Tears of the Kingdom, one other thing I want from that, we need a reset. We need a new Hyrule. Different Link, different Zelda, and so like keep it all this stuff. But that was another like I remember criticism Tears of the Kingdom that I didn't necessarily share, but people were like, it's just the same Hyrule. Obviously, it was very different. That's what made it cool to re-explore. But I think it's like it's time for a different Hyrule. I hope they don't stay with this this version of those characters.
I definitely disagree with those criticisms in the sense that I think being able to revisit an open world like Breath of the Wild's Hyrule
5 years later, where everything's different.
Like
yeah,
it's such
that was
a
so
cool and like a thing that you can do a lot with. And I think that they did do a lot with in terms of revisiting the same locations. It's the way we talk about how in Yakuza games, right? Like it's cool to be a fan of that when you're able to go back to the same areas and revisit the same establishments, same people, and having stories move forward. That said, I don't want them to do that again. Like Tears of the Kingdom gave me my fill of like revisiting that same Hyrule. I think that was fucking awesome for that game. But
Is there anything
now I want new.
Is there anything they could do with revisiting, the sort of dream world of Link's Awakening
I think if they ever did that, it would
in
be
a 3D way?
I don't
Like this
think
is the
it's-
Hyrule for this game or whatever.
Yeah, the low rule. Maybe. Like that. Like to the past.
Yeah, and
I'm
they've
with you.
teased, they've like done little like teases, like there's the whole underground in Tears of the Kingdom, but we never got like what's it called in Link to the Past? Not Low Rule, but
Dark World.
The Dark World, yeah. Something like that I think would be cool. Or if it is the same Link, him going to a different part of the world or something to explore.
I think that there's a high likelihood we do not return to the Breath of the Wild Hyrule again, which is good. I think it'll be a different world, Termina, something. I don't know. Who knows? I imagine it'll be something new. But I think the next mainline...
I think it could just be Hyrule again, but just a different iteration.
I do think the next mainline game still features these characters. Because again, I think that they're trying... I think that the Breath of the Wild and Ocarina Links are going to be Nintendo's Links. Like, I think that they're going to push these characters as more important than the other Links.
I feel like you're changing the franchise then.
But I think that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it.
That's where I'm at.
But they've already been doing that with Tears of the Kingdom, right? Like they're already like doing this lore stuff that is kind of like gotten away from like their canon timeline stuff that like Tim and I have gone back and forth on for hours and hours at this point after years. It's like it definitely felt like in retrospect like they kind of accidentally fell into that. And
Even look at the logo.
Yeah.
Right? The Zelda logo is now the Breath of the Wild style, right?
Yeah.
And I think
I guess I view that as like a generation thing of that is what Zelda is
It's
for
this
era.
era.
This era, right? Like I would hope that when you hop into the next generation on the Switch too, you do redefine that. Like I do want new logos. Like I think one of the exciting things for Zelda for me is seeing what this version of Hyrule looks like now.
That
because
font.
yeah, like give me the good font. All right, what are we doing this gen? Because for me, it is Zelda Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom is the same as like Ocarina to Majora's Mask, right? Like N64, that is what defined this, right? Then we hop into GameCube. GameCube was weird because Twilight is different, very different from Wind Waker, even though Twilight.
Wind Waker had Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. Like I think being able to curate generations of Zelda and like even having multiple products within those generations that feed off of each other, like I don't know, I get really excited when we hop to the next one. So I don't really know if I want them to keep with the same Zelda and Link.
I'm not saying I want it.
Yeah,
I'm saying
I very much see
man.
it. Sorry, I just had another thought where you just have me thinking about like a follow up to Majora's Mask if they do this like whole remake thing of like what if instead we do the child Link post Majora's Mask and we see him get that cool armor that we see in Twilight Princess where he trains Link. There's a skeleton bless and sick ass armor that trains Link and gives him a bunch of moves, and it turns out that was the last legend, that was the last hero.
I played Twilight Princess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you know the
that's
guy.
one of my favorites. I know the guy.
Yeah.
I know
So-
the
I know the guy.
So like, what if we get that story of him being an adult and like being like lost and forgotten and doing like one more adventure that like nobody ever has heard
like
of?
it.
That'd be so sad.
We got a bunch of super chats that I want to get through here. Chrono Rig says, my favorite part of Tears was the cave system. Would love to see them expand on that and more costumes. Also Link in high school, CW style.
Absolutely
LLJK.
not.
This is a really cool super chat from OMGLX who says, $20 super chat, by the way. Thank you. Who says, similar to kebabs, but I want the Triforce allocation fully remixed. Zelda with Courage, the protagonist. Ganondorf with Wisdom as a sort of sinister tactician who forces power on Link, turning him to the dark side.
Yeah, then we're.
That'd be so
Oh
fire.
no, man, we're fucking up the sacred word.
It'd be so
We're
fire.
creating. That's like when somebody writes a new book in the Bible. And it's like, well, no, this is a different religion now. All right?
That'd be
So,
so
like
fire.
that to me sound. We'll get that after we finally get a Pokemon game that the starters aren't fire, grass, and water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Tim's preaching right now. Some things are sacred.
Admiral Redbeard says, I want to get this in ASAP. This will be my last super chat for a while, and I think it's appropriate today. As I found out yesterday, I'm going to be a dad.
Whoa!
Congratulations, Admiral.
What's more important, though, funding us or diapers? Like, think about that. So,
Yeah, I appreciate the last one before the diaper apocalypse happens. Kebab says, I want Zelda as the lead, but with normal combat.
Yeah.
With normal combat.
Give Zelda
like
a
it.
fucking sword.
Yeah,
Why are they so scared of getting Zelda a sword?
See, I like that better
Why
than-
give her like the fucking copy mechanic that's like not that very interesting and makes dungeon design just kind of like conflicting with like the freedom but traditional? Fuck it, give her a sword.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make her a main character and make her a main character in a main Zelda game, fucking give her a sword.
Why do I have to summon Link's powers to fight?
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus.
I mean, for me, it's back to the Triforce thing. Zelda got courage, or not Zelda. Sorry, Link has courage. Courage. How do you display that? A sword. Wisdom. You do smart things. You copy things. You know?
Talk yourself out of situations.
Give me skill checks.
Shit. Also, bring back the Triforce. They like it's teased in those two games,
That's
but
a
like
super
bring that back. And oh
That's,
shit,
that's a super chat from Joshua Barnett. $5 super chat says, "Bring back the Triforce." I agree. That'd be awesome.
bring it back into an important part of the
See?
story. Don't just like
See?
it's teased in the world.
You
of,
hated it in Triforce Heroes. Now you want it back.
It's not. I don't think that's what people hated about
For
Triforce.
real talk,
They had
though,
it in
that
the
to me,
title.
that is the type of evidence that I'm like, I don't think we're done with the characters of Breath of the Wild. Like, I do think there's more Zelda story to tell there, like Zelda lore story to
And
tell
I
there.
thought it was going to be Tears of the Kingdom that did that, right? Like, you know, them bringing in Ganon, the Blight being like reddish, and then like the nature being green, representing Link, and then the not Zonai, but the Sheik attack being blue and all that stuff. Like you see it in the world all represented, but yeah, it's weird that it's not like the text.
Bring back the dungeon theme song from Link to the Past. God, that song just kicks so good.
So good.
Nick from Co-op 64 says, just had surgery. Thanks for entertaining while I'm on bed rest. I think Nintendo wants something Zelda every year. 2025 will be the remakes.
Damn, get better, Nick.
Good luck, man. Yeah, hopefully things went well and hopefully they continue to. Jay says, happy birthday, Andy.
Thank you. Happy birthday month.
Birthday month.
Cozy Bear
Shortest
says,
month
next
of the year,
Zelda
it's fucked
really
up.
needs to step up its narrative chops. Both Breath and Tears had cool, isolated story moments, but told underwhelming stories overall. It's a weird thing where it's like, I think that
I felt that way
specifically
about
Tears.
Breath, but not Tears.
I think
Yeah.
Tears told a great story overall. Why can't I say it?
Overall. The Garden Wall.
But I just don't think that it told it well. That's the problem.
yeah.
But like, it was great, and like, I will never forget the ending moments of that game
Yeah.
because of the story
Yeah.
adding up with gameplay. You know what I mean?
For me, the way that everything played out was like as pitch perfect as it could be. So I am firmly against your points, but only because I happen to do things in a certain order that worked out great for me narratively. And then I think about all the other people who just had this in a much different way,
Hodgepodge.
super
Yeah.
out of order, and like, oh, that
It's
would have
the
been a
repeating
bummer.
for me. That like, it just shows that
Yeah.
they didn't have a solution, and they're just like, we're gonna just have to repeat.
We're
the
going
same
to show this
thing.
like same cutscene, but from a different character's perspective that adds nothing new to
Oh, but I
the
was
story.
so hyped, dude, with the music.
Yeah,
that's
and by the
all right.
time you get to the
I'm with
fourth
Andy
time,
here.
you're like, oh my god, like I fucking get it. Did you have anything new to add to the story? No? All right, let's fucking move on.
I disagree because on my third time, I'm like, this is the third time, and I'm still hyped.
Yeah,
Like,
see, yeah.
I can't believe I'm still hyped. The music is so good here.
I think in terms of like actual like writing, I would love for the Zelda stories to kind of bring back like sort
David
of
Fincher.
yes, like more kind of like existential themes like Ocarina and Majora's like Mask did, because like there's some really good fucking writing in terms of like character stories throughout those games that I don't feel the recent games since like Skyward Sword have really done on that same level. So I do agree in some terms. Like I disagree on Tears of the Kingdom being not a good story because yeah, I think it was incredible, but like give me some of that sadness back. Zelda games are fucking
You
sad.
could just find a way to have the tiers like be in a linear order. Like, like you can find them anywhere, but
Yeah.
still give us
Yes.
the cutscenes or something.
That was a
I know they
criticism
were-
I had on Zelda in review. It's like, okay, you have all these teardrops, and like, yeah, the specific locations give specific memories. Don't do it that way.
Yeah.
Give it in a specific order when you find them. Yeah. God.
Do better, Nintendo.
I don't know,
better.
man. I like non-linearity. I mean, it might be because I'm playing Outer Wilds right now,
And you also just watched Memento.
and I also did watch Memento
great
recently.
movie. Great movie.
But
to
it's-
watch a cutscene from like two prior things, and you're like, oh, that's
dude,
why this.
I love
like
that moment in
I
a
like
video
that.
game. That's
But-
why
but
I
see,
don't want it linear.
I get what you guys are saying. My problem with it is the story isn't good enough that it's Memento. It's not like they're dropping stuff where you're like, oh man, this is out of order. I wonder how we got here.
Yeah.
Like the order I got these things in, it was just like a little like anticlimactic because I got some
But
of the
even
better stuff.
Even if you got it in
the
order,
beginning.
do you think that would fix that for you? Because for me, like
Yeah.
I think in order or out of order, with the Tears discovery would have hit exactly the same for me. I think
I
having
think it
it
would have hit harder.
really, I think like I guess the
Seeing
the
Zelda go
inner
on that
machinations
arc,
of my brain.
Seeing Zelda go on the arc of like her believing more in herself and her powers with the tier that she gets and stuff, I think would have played better actually seeing that build up rather than I agree with Tim. Like I think the story structure or the story itself doesn't really hold up the structure of seeing it in any sort of way. But obviously from this conversation, it's to each their own.
You guys are playing the game wrong, man.
You should have went east first. If you found story number 6 before tier number
Steve
3.
Jobs saying, hold the iPhone better.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different, man.
I mean, I'm sure it does. David Flores says, I want another Capcom Zelda, but 3D traditional with the Dragon's Dogma combat. It wouldn't be too different from the sword skills in Twilight Princess. David, you're fucking cooking there.
That's crazy.
Wait, can you say that again?
I want another Capcom Zelda, but with 3D traditional style
Oh,
with
I
Dragon's
see.
Dogma combat. It wouldn't be too different from the sword skills in Twilight Princess.
Gotcha.
Dude, honestly, I love this. Get weird, Nintendo. Give big teams like Capcom or Sega again IP to try something. You know, like we've seen so much success with that. Like, off
And
the
that's
top
not
of
even
my head,
weird. That's just so sick.
I can't think of any bad time they did that. Let me know if I'm wrong
when they
about
partnered with another.
that. Yeah, it seems like every time
I would
it's
say
been-
like I think Hyrule Warriors, the first one, people were kind of like, yeah, it's fun, but people fuck with Age of Calamity, and so that's another thing like we haven't brought up of Zelda on
Well,
Switch
that's
too.
because
It's
of
like,
what's her face, Batty.
Oh, it's like right. Is it Pura? No.
Pura. No,
Well, Pura was in Tears.
the grandma who is young and then gets back to
Oh,
normal age. I forget her
different. She
name.
different.
It's like when your friend shows you, like, here's my grandma when she was like 30, and you're like, God,
You're like, whoa! I see how you got here.
How many times has that happened to you, Andy?
a handful.
Okay, Lord.
I
Yells-
think Nintendo go to Team Ninja. Have them make Zelda Other Z.
Oh my lord. Oh, that is a good example of, of it not working out. Yeah.
Other M?
Yeah.
Other M?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yelsing says next big Zelda should have co-op Link and Lonk. Thank you for that.
No, Link and Gooink, like Gooigi.
Oh yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
Garrett Redden
Welda.
says, I want something similar to Twilight. Big dungeons, more detailed, and gothic art design. Dark but hopeful narrative.
Twilight hit different. That
Dude,
was a really
Twilight's
good-ass
dungeons
game.
are fucking undefeated. I want them to
Snow
get
one.
better. And that's what we were saying earlier about like the next iteration of their big open world stuff. Like, I want that level of fucking dungeon
I
design.
wouldn't know.
back.
I'd love to play it.
Oh, you haven't played Twilight Princess?
One day, maybe.
Oh, you would fuck with Twilight Princess so hard.
No, I owned it at one point and then ended up re-pawning it back to the store.
Biggest mistake
But
of
it
your
was
life.
on the game. It was on the GameCube that I had bought from a pawn shop.
That game sold me on the Wiimote. I guess I was already sold because I had played Wii Sports. But like playing that game on the Wii for some reason
I was
just
already sold. Who am I kidding? I love that thing.
I love my Wiimote. But yeah, playing Twilight Princess with the Wiimote, like I don't know, man. I like that shit. That shit was good.
Nah,
Just
you
fucking running
play
around.
That, play
doing
that with a
this,
controller like a normal
Tundra
person.
Boy.
cutting grass.
Thunder Boy says, I got filtered out by the beginning. Yeah, like Twilight Princess and Kingdom Hearts 2 will go down in history for me of like just
Terrible
the
openings.
worst opening 3 to 5
Oh,
hours
yeah.
ever. And then bangers after that.
That may be why I sold it back to the pawn
Yeah,
shop.
yeah.
Think
it
about
doesn't-
doing those first 5 hours though, and just like swinging a Wiimote back and forth. That'll get you through it.
Mellow Fellow says, screw stamina and climbing. Give me back the hook shot.
Yeah, that was a big omission.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I struggle the most with of trying to figure out how to Ocarina of Timeify the Breath of the Wild format is how can you allow climbing and still have items that allow you to progress and do different things? Like, that's on y'all Nintendo to figure out and blow my
Yeah,
mind.
I literally
but-
don't
And
think you can.
And for that Ocarina of Time remake, I want stamina because again, I want not full Dark Souls. Don't freak out, but like something closer to that where you're
Right.
actually thinking about everything that you're inputting. And I think having a stamina, maybe just purely based for combat, not like other activities that you do outside of combat, I think would be really interesting.
I think the hookshot could just be a cooldown item. It could be a main thing in addition to climbing, and you are hookshotting as high as you can go to then climb on the wall to then get to the next spot. Like,
Think about the game you guys played yesterday.
with the game we just streamed yesterday, Lost Skies, I believe.
Yeah.
Fuck, that game is awesome. And like, it's just straight up, your grapple hook is a Spider-Man swing, and the way the physics worked was incredible. But I think you made a great point before we even started this Gamescast. Wait, I don't know if we talked about. When did you ask Kevin about Eternal Strands?
Oh, was that during the
before the
first
show
It
started?
was before
Before
the
the show
show
started, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Ad,
may
right?
have
It was
been
a
during the
commercial
ad.
break.
Okay.
Yeah.
Eternal Strands, I would love if when you play Eternal Strands, it deals with the elemental sort of things and lighting things on fire and ice, or using fire to melt the ice and all that sort of stuff. And climbing gigantic enemies. It's like, dude, if they just had more, if they just included all of the stuff that I loved about Dragon's Dogma inside of a Zelda game with Zelda mechanics and Zelda polish, Nintendo polish, this game would be so incredible. Because I had such a fun freaking time either shooting the weak spots or using my gravity to lift up a rock and toss it and hit that weak point that then, makes the armor fall off. And then now the arm is exposed to weakness. Such an
You know what that
awesome
reminds me
freaking fun
of?
time.
That idea, Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Hey man,
Hey, man.
Deserve
Nintendo
better.
polish,
Yeah, it goes a long way. God, Andy, one day you're going to play Twilight Princess. One of the dungeons, you get dual hook shots.
Oh,
so sick.
shit. There's only two. How many walls are there?
So many. God, dude. And then the fucking boss fight where you're swinging from towers to fight. God damn, Twilight Princess is good.
Like the day you play Twilight Princess, it's going to be one of those like, oh man, like there are other games that are better in the franchise, but this is like
They
my
had it
personal.
like that.
Yeah,
Dude, I
like
played
I
it.
think you are going to fucking adore.
I'm pretty
Twilight
sure I was on
Princess.
summer vacation when I played Twilight Princess, so I didn't have shit else to do.
Get this
Oh,
off the screen.
Like if you ever play Twilight Princess, just like call in sick to work for a couple weeks. Okay, and just play
Weeks.
it.
But also stream it at the same time.
Yeah. Tim, I'm sick. I'm streaming 12 hours.
Joshua Barnett says, Breath of the Wild and Tears are amazing, but I need them to add real dungeons and finding unique items that bring the almost Metroidvania element that's missing. We talked about that. Mirage says, could the gang predict what the future Zelda slate year by year looks like? We kind of did that as well. Andy.
I just wanted to say I don't I've never been the person that hates weapon degradation, but I wouldn't mind if they replace it with something else. If they replace it with a different sort of, I love opening a treasure box and finding like, oh shit, this is a brand new thing that I can replace my old thing with. I didn't mind breaking weapons, and I didn't mind sort of having a long sort of list of things to sort of sort through. It was kind of a pain in the ass, obviously, but there's better ways to go about it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind especially with the freedom of builds that we've seen through something like Avowed recently, where, when you play a Souls game, it's all very limited. It's like, no, that weapon has to be for your class. I love that Avowed's just like, hey, whatever you kind of fuck with, go with it, And they can get really creative with how cool and awesome their weapons can look.
Yeah. I actually do like the weapon degradation as it works, and usually I don't like it, but in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, I think it works. But to your point, I think it could be cool to have more unique weapons that don't degrade, right? Like, because there's some weapons where I collect and I'm like, oh, I fucking love this thing.
I'm never gonna use it.
Never using this. I'm gonna put it in my. I'm gonna frame it in my house.
Yeah.
And just leave it there. I'm never gonna use this thing.
CJ Splitson says, idea, old Link, like Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh man.
Just like I was saying.
And Link,
Kind of.
you play as Link's child, and they talk, and it's weird.
His name is
like, Dad, why would you speak
Link
to me?
still doesn't talk, but the kid does.
And his name is
Kid never learned how to talk.
Dewey.
7 past 10 says, I wish the next Hyrule would feel more lived in with more villages and more people, more density.
Could we ever get a non-post-apocalyptic Hyrule?
Yeah.
We've got plenty of those.
I would say we've gotten it before, but
Let me see them with the highest economy ever. Everybody's thriving.
I want a thriving Hyrule.
I want to see a Best Buy next to a fucking a Dick's Sporting Goods.
Maybe that is a way economy like a Best Buy.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is a way that they could do the same Hyrule, but completely different, or it's 10 years later, and everything is rebuilt in ways that we could not have imagined.
Yeah, I want a bustling Hyrule.
Yeah, I like that.
Tadisia says, I'd love to see them explore the lore and history of the Four Sword in the same way they did with the Master Sword, but with modern 3D Zelda gameplay. I mean, that would be interesting if the pitch that Bless and Andy had earlier of a multiplayer game, if it did also have story beats and things that add to the lore, but
and then I can unlock costumes by paying money. Give me
buy the Nintendo
unique,
red Nintendo
I want
Switch.
a Mario glider. Oh man, an amiibo glider.
Oh shit!
I'm doing a Kid Icarus glider.
Can you imagine just all of us grappling around a big enemy? Just grappling.
We can do that in so many other
Us
games.
taking down a dragon,
together,
one of the dragons are flying around.
Yeah.
let us know in the comments below what you would want to see from the next Legend of Zelda entry.
Doing shrines at the same time?
Switch
Oh, man.
2.
Come on.
We have a full day of fun stuff. Like I was saying, Greg and Mike are about to
Get me
stream
on the
a
phone,
little
Mr. Nintendo.
66. And stay tuned to the Kind of Funny in Review podcast feed or YouTube for the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man and Cobra Kai screencasts. Until next time, have a
Exclusive
Zelda-less
pre-order
day.
skins. Man,
Oh man.
so fire.
Come on, man.
Dances.